Shabbat Shalom, I'm Robert Barr, and this is
Bart Campolo.
And we are delighted you're joining us for this Shabbat service. We're going to begin our service with a reading and then a bit of an explanation. So put away the pencil and the paper, put away the notebook and the keys, set aside the shovel and hammer, rest. For this interval, no buying, no selling, no working, no laboring, no straining, not living in the past, not planning for the future. Continue.
This is a time for celebration, for joy, for mirth. We are here, alive, to rejoice in another Sabbath, another opportunity to be together, grateful for our family and friends. With no distractions, we touch and are touched, the great gift of the Sabbath.
So as I said, I'm Robert Barr, and this is Bart Campolo. And those of you who are joining us know that this is ourjewishcommunity.org. Ourjewishcommunity.org is this remarkable community that we've built that really spans the globe. Using technology, we are able to reach people in different places and at different times. Some of you watch this service live at 6 o'clock, and perhaps you're chatting right now. Others watch this service at other times in our archives when it's convenient for you, because we know that we don't all live to the same rhythm. Some of us have to work on Friday. Some of us are, if it's 6 o'clock in Cincinnati, it's only 3 o'clock in LA, or it's 3 o'clock in the morning somewhere else. So technology allows us to reach each other, to form community. But technology is only a tool. It isn't the reason we exist. The reason we exist is to give voice to a bold, strong Judaism that understands that we need to bring in modernity into our thinking. We need to give voice through our liturgy, words that speak to who we are, what we're becoming, that brings science right into the sanctuary. And that's what we've been doing here at Congregation Beth Adam for the last 36 years, bringing a Judaism together that brings the best of thinking, today's thinking, right into the sanctuary. Now, some of our services are live. This is a pre-recorded service. So Bart was in Cincinnati giving a lecture at Congregation Beth Adam. It was wonderful. There's a video, actually, interview that's online that you'll be able to see, a short interview with Bart, about 5 minutes Q&A. But I imposed upon Bart one last time. I said, you have to sit down with me, and we're going to pre-record a Shabbat service. So this is pre-recorded, and I appreciate Bart doing this. He's been talking almost all day.
But I don't get to do many Shabbat services.
Right. Oh, there you go.
So, it's a great, unique opportunity for me.
So this is great. We're going to light the candles, and then we're going to have a conversation, and you're going to meet one fascinating guy. On this Sabbath, we create our moment in time. We pause to reflect upon our yesterdays and tomorrows, to renew our ties with our family and friends, to restore our energies, to refresh our spirits. As the sun descends and shadow lengthen, the distraction of the day gives way to the stillness of night. It's time now for us to see, not with our eyes, but with our hearts and our minds. As the day gives way to evening, it is time for us to welcome the Shabbat.
The candles stand before us, waiting to be lit. We recall our ancestors as we too seek to dispel the darkness and banish the cold, to bring the glowing softness, warmth, and safety into our homes. May the dancing flames of these candles kindle warmth within our hearts, wisdom in our minds, passion in our souls.
Out to the Hebrew. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. You light the candles.
Sure.
Well, you did that like a pro.
There's a little Jew in each of us.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you. Robert Barr, Bart Campolo. Bart is the humanist chaplain at University of Southern California.
That is correct.
So if you're in that area, look him up. Before doing that, you were in the business of religion, but at the other spectrum, on the other end of the spectrum, I should say, right? You were an evangelical minister. So you went from being evangelical minister, pretty influential, well-known, to humanist chaplain at USC. Hey, talk just a bit about the transition.
You know what? Before I went from that, I went from being a 15-year-old kid who was a really nice person to being an evangelical Christian. And you kind of can't understand how I got out of evangelical Christianity unless you understand how I got into it.
Right.
So, I got into it because I got recruited by a young man on my soccer team to come to his youth group, and I had never seen a community of people that was more loving and kind than this group. And as soon as I wandered in those doors, I was like, I want to be a part of this club. And I was like, what's it all about? And you figure out, like, they're evangelical Christians, and they're sort of like, look, this is what we believe. And the believing part was really hard for me, but I wanted to be part of the community enough that I was like, I'll try.
So did you, and I got a chance to hear, did you suspend your disbelief, or did you rework the, so like when we go to a play we go to a play at a theater, we go in, we suspend our disbeliefs. We go, okay, I know I'm watching some people who are reading a script. I know there are lights all around.
But I'm going to pretend it's real.
But I'm going to pretend it's real. And the play only works if you pretend it's real. If you don't pretend it's real, then you're just watching people walking around and you go, this is silly. So did you,
Here's the thing about God. Is you can't prove that there is a God. You can't prove that there isn't a God. So I'm in there, and I want there to be a God. I don't believe this, but I'd like to.
Okay.
Because I'd like to be part of this community, and everybody else believes. So everybody's praying. So you pray. You say, well, what do you pray if you don't believe in God? And you say, like, God, if you're out there, show up. Let me know who you are. You're hoping. You're going through the motions.
Okay.
But at some point in this community, you're going through the motions, and at some point it became real to me.
Okay.
And so I wasn't pretending to believe. At some point, you're with 300 people. It's like the zeitgeist of the room. Like, we're singing, we're swaying, and I feel something. And I feel like, oh, that sense of connectedness, that must be God.
Right.
Now, I'm a secular person. Now, I would explain it differently. I would explain that transcendent experience differently. I would say it was something that was happening in my brain. It was what Emil Durkheim might call collective effervescence. But it was real. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes some of my secular friends will be like, well, you must feel silly saying that you felt God. And I'm like, no, I felt something.
Sure.
And so because I was in a Christian narrative, when I had that transcendent moment, it confirmed that narrative. Right. And so then I really believed in God.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And then, so you went evolution to get into it, and then an evolution to move out of it. But the evolution moving out was a much longer de-evolution.
Yeah, and the reason is, like, I always was struggling with parts of the theology, and I kept adjusting my theology to try to make it more reasonable, more. The problem of evil in the world caused me to go like, I don't think God's in control of everything that happens. And then my gay friends were like, I don't think God's really against gay people. And then, but what happened is every time I'm changing my theology and changing my image of God so that it works for me, by the end, the God I believed in right before I left was perfect. He agreed with everything I thought. He loved everything I loved. But the problem is that you end up with this perfect God, and you realize it's a product of your own imagination. Like, I invented God. I underlined certain Bible verses and ignored others. Right. And finally, I got to a place where I had dialed back the supernatural and dialed back the supernatural. And then I had this experience where I had a bicycle crash. I had a bad concussion. It took me about a month to recover. And when I recovered, I realized, I think I'm in my brain. I think this is my life. Right. And I think that when I die, I'll be dead. That this life is really the only one I have. And I remember saying to my wife, I think life is the only one I have. And she said, I think you're right. And I think you better stop being a professional Christian because you don't believe in God anymore.
So you made the transition both emotionally, intellectually, and professionally.
And then which raised an obvious question. Now what do you do? What do you do? You're a minister who doesn't believe in God. What do you do now?
That's right. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So you became a humanist chaplain.
Not right away. Right away, I was working. I took some other jobs working with friends. I was living in the inner city of Cincinnati, working with poor, and I stayed with my friends, and we still worked with poor people. But that was not my job. That was just my life. Right. I had to get a new job, and so I got some different jobs But everywhere I would go, people would go like, "Hey, you were this Christian guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't believe in God anymore." And people would go like, "Neither do I," but I miss it. Right. And they would always say, like, I miss the music. I miss the fellowship. Right. I miss the purpose. I miss getting together with people who share my values. And then they would say, hey, you used to run churches. couldn't you start a church for people who don't believe in God?
Right.
And a lot of the people that watch you and that are connected to you, they're like, hey, couldn't you start a synagogue for people who don't believe in God?
Right.
And so I became obsessed with what would it look like to create a community that wasn't about what you don't believe, but that was about what you do believe
Right.
and what you are committed to and what you value.
Right. And I think, just so you know, too, I think some of the folks who are involved with ourjewishcommunity.org some are also on that evolutionary scale or somewhere along that God concept. They still may use the term, but it's no longer an interventionist God. It's they're probably religious naturalists who might have a God concept that fits in it. One of the things
Well, and language is a big thing because
Right.
some people are like, I want to hold on to that language
Right.
because it connects me with my heritage,
Right.
it connects me with my family, and so the only reason I don't call myself like a progressive Christian or like a John Shelby Spanglish
Right.
kind of Christian is because there's this other group of people. There's a group of people that you're talking about
Right.
that they need to hold on to the language, and then there's other people that are terrified of the language. And I figured out like those people could probably use a pastor.
Sure. And the thing that makes Judaism different and is that because we're a culture and not a religion, right? Judaism began with, we're a people in which there are different versions of being
Jewish.
religiously Jewish.
Yeah.
So you can be a cultural secular Jew and that's authentic.
I know.
And
I've often envied you. I said, like, because if I was, like, when you give up the beliefs as an evangelical Christian, you're out.
right. And in Judaism, there's nothing to believe. There is no creedal statement. And I think a lot of Jews, we don't appreciate that dynamic because it's not something that we know. Because in Judaism, there's no litmus test of belief. There's nothing you have to say to be Jewish. But so we may not say the same prayers as
I
other
know.
congregations.
I was fascinated. I was upstairs, and there were all these members of the congregation that were saying, like, I didn't grow up Jewish. I joined, and I was like, how can you join? And they were, because it wasn't for them about beliefs.
Right.
It was this way of life. And they said, and they joined this congregation because, like, I don't believe in God,
Right.
but I do believe in that way of life.
Right. And it's about that. So it's been
I want to be a part of that culture.
culture, and I think too, and it's a word you talked about. It's sort of that religious enterprise because I do believe in the religious enterprise. I know, in the
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like at USC, I'm part of the Office of Religious Life.
Right,
And people
I love their tough
people say
thing.
that must be really hard for you as a secular person. I'm like, no. At USC, they define religion as the pursuit of life's ultimate questions.
Right.
Where do we come from? What happens when we die? What makes a good life? Where does good and evil come from? What's the foundation of life? And the dean of religious life there says, I want you here because you're helping students answer those questions in a secular way.
right because we unfortunately they're religious.
So I'm religious.
Right, there are what I would call traditionally religious people who say, "Oh, you secular people who won't have answers to these questions." And I say, "Of course we have answers. They may not be quote, answers that you agree with, but they are answers to ultimate questions."
And
What happens-
ironically, so many of the answers are exactly what we have the same answer. It's just founded on a different
Right.
narrative.
Right, and the bigger one typically is around death. When we die. I mean, I remember is there an afterlife? And I remember there was an event where somebody wanted to comfort my children when one of our dogs died, and the first thing they said was, "Don't worry, the dog
Yes.
went to a different place." And the people were trying to be nice to my kids. They didn't want my kids to feel badly that the dog died, and to me it was no. That what we had with the dog was special. It doesn't exist anymore. The dog doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And
Do I have time to tell you one quick story?
yeah.
When I was growing up, one of the arguments that was used a lot of times was something called Pascal's Wager. Mm-hmm. Blaise Pascal, the philosopher and mathematician, said that you can't prove whether there is or isn't a God, but he said, even if there's a 1 in a million chance that there is a God, you should believe in him. Because if it turns out you're wrong, you've lost nothing.
Right.
But if it turns out that you don't believe in him and you're wrong, you've lost everything.
Right.
I've come to believe that Blaise Pascal was very good at math, but that was a very stupid argument.
Right.
Because my experience is that if you bet on eternal life, you live one way. And if you tell your kids the dog is in another place, then the new dog comes and they think, we don't have to treat this dog that well.
Right.
If it dies, we don't have to really focus on loving this dog right now because we'll have eternity to love this dog. That you love someone very differently if you know that our time is short.
Right.
And I think that people will live more full, rich, loving, joyful lives if they are aware
Right.
that our time is short. And so death is a part of life, not the negation of it.
Right. No, and I agree with you because I think too often the afterlife conversation diminishes this life. This is only a pale reflection of the really important life that's going to come.
And the awareness of death is what animates our lives and makes us passionate about caring for each other, because we go like, you know what? I'm not going to have you forever. So I better work it out with you now.
So you're a great preacher. I mean, I was watching.
Thank you.
You really are. And you're not number 407, whatever number you came up in the evangelical world. Great preacher. When you preached the Jesus narrative and the afterlife narrative, I mean, it's afterlife, powerful.
I have to be very honest with you.
How do you preach?
I never preached the afterlife.
You didn't?
No. I mean, I believed it was there and I never negated it. But what I always said to people, if you hear sermons, I say like, look, if there was no heaven and if there was no hell, I would still follow Jesus because it's a better way of life right now. And what I meant by following Jesus was
your values.
I would still love people.
So you were still, even when you were self-aware at that point, you still were really in a different
I was
place.
dialing it back the whole time. Because the thing is, and one of the things I would say to people is that if Christianity is the right way to live, if loving people for Jesus is the right way to live, it isn't like this horrible thing you do this negative thing so that later you get this reward.
Right.
I was like, loving people is the reward. Like, it's not like, so to me, heaven was just an extension of what really matters here.
So you never gave that. That's interesting.
I never, and the other thing is, I quickly became a universalist because the idea that a loving God would condemn people to hell for having the wrong theology seemed absurd to me even as a Christian.
Okay, it's interesting.
So I was never a fire and brimstones guy.
Yeah, and I think the hard part, different people will join us, and for those of us who grew up in the Jewish world, we don't know the evangelical world that well. I mean, your dad's prominent. But there are other prominent ministers.
Billy Graham.
Yeah, Billy Graham. I mean, for a lot of us.
Robert Schuller. You watched these guys on TV.
And
Jerry Falwell.
I mean, because I think those are people who.
Joel Osteen,
and I don't know where. Jimmy Swaggart, the Bakers.
Right.
Tammy Faye and.
I knew them all.
Right, and so for us, when we think about evangelical, this is my bias. I go Falwell, Baker, Swaggart, who I had really difficulties with when I
politically, social issues,
and the way they used Bible,
fear.
Yes, because Robert Schuller. We were talking a little bit about Schuller a little bit ago. I mean, Schuller was much more, certainly at his beginning, very inclusive. And when I listened to Schuller, in fact, I watched him to learn about preaching because the guy was fantastic.
And you would have loved when I was a Christian. My dad, the people that we hung around, Rob Bell, like you would have liked us. Like we were preaching supernaturalism. But we were preaching the kind of God that just wanted you to love everybody. Okay. And what we were saying was, like, I was a universalist. I would tell everybody's going to go to heaven in the end. That's not the point. The point is, even if you're going to go to heaven in the end, why would you want to wait until you die to start experiencing the joy of love?
Wow. So, but how would you, could you give a little bit of a roadmap between sort of the, I don't know what the word is. The more extreme fundamental. I mean, how would you sort of the
what do you want to know about those people?
I'm just trying to understand the divide. Now, did you so your dad did you have problems with the other side?
Yes, yes.
And are they a particular group?
And sometimes they didn't like us. They were like, "You preaching that social gospel? You're trying to convince people that following Jesus is all about loving the poor when it's really about getting saved and getting other people saved."
So within the evangelical world, there was an internal fight that we as outsiders probably weren't aware of or know about.
Have you noticed all the denominations? Like
you guys have
every single denomination represents a schism.
Okay.
And like so you get. What do they say about Jews? Like, you get 3 Jews in a room, you have 5 opinions?
Right.
Well, evangelical Christians are just the same. And every time they disagree with each other, they start a new church.
Right.
And they will continue to split because if your community is based on beliefs, you'll always find a place where the beliefs diverge. Okay. It's only a community based on values and practices that can stay together even when people believe different things. So Judaism, I've been to Israel. Like, you get all these different versions of Judaism, and they all show up at the same wall.
Right.
And they would all say, "You're still a Jew." I think you're an idiot. I think you're wrong. I'm completely.
You're a sinning Jew.
You're sinning. You're completely off the map, but you're still a Jew.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
But whereas with Christians, the thing that they'll say to you is, "You believe that? You believe that? You know what? You're not a Christian. A real Christian would believe this."
Got it. Well, it's interesting. And then, I think, too, for us, and I think probably some of the folks, who join us online, we're not a mega church, we're not a mega synagogue, and we look at the mega church phenomena and trying to understand what that means and what that represents in the world of religion.
Well, I think what it represents most clearly is that people come to religion not necessarily wanting to be right or to be educated. They want something that transforms their lives in a positive way, that they have a deep inner desire to be a good person, to raise their children to be good people, to feel like they belong to a community of good people. And a megachurch does a very good job. A lot of times the pastors, they do a great job of creating an emotionally resonant experience. The music is powerful and beautiful, and you're participatory. The people are incredibly friendly.
Right.
The sermons are very applicable to your daily life. And people will say why do you come to this church? And you go because it helps me.
Right.
And I think that nobody's going to want to be part of a community. Well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes people are part of communities because it's fear,
Right.
or it's family, or it's this,
obligation, right.
or it's obligation. But I think what grows is when you can say, hey, this is going to make it's going to enrich your life, and it's going to be a vehicle through which you can make the world a better place. And a megachurch convinces you that by being part of that, you're part of a movement that's doing something meaningful in the world.
And it's interesting, the one or two times that I've gone to mega churches, they're very much theatrical. They turn off the lights or dim the lights a lot. So they do create...
It's a show.
It's a show, which I think I don't think a lot of people don't realize when the lights go down, we suspend our disbelief automatically.
Because we're trained to do it.
We're trained to do it. We're trained to do it in
the
the movie
movies.
theater, right? We're trained to do it in the theater. We're trained to not be analytical.
The bedroom.
The bedroom. The whole thing, right? We stop because that's the instinct. When the lights go down, the people upon whom the lights shine, we're supposed to believe them. They are the key actors.
Yeah.
We are the recipients of their wisdom, and which makes us. So when I went to a mega church and I was listening, I was in theater before I
You felt manipulated.
Well, I watched it because I was watching the background. It's I remember my brother's a theater professor, and I was going to see Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas, and for a variety of reasons he said, watch the back of the house. He said the back of the house show is more interesting than the front of the house show. So if you go and watch it, you can see all the people dressed in black doing all their stuff. And it was really amazing because there was a whole show behind the other show.
And what they know, and what a megachurch knows, is that if I want to move you, I don't aim at your reason.
Right.
We're not reasonable people. We're rationalizing people. We're not rational. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that we feel something, and then we come up with an argument
Why so?
to justify it.
Right.
And that's how this stuff starts. And so even if you're rational and you want to convince people of something as rational as we should love each other and save the environment,
right.
You don't come to them with a bunch of statistics.
Right.
You got to aim at their hearts.
Right. And that's the challenge, I think, we look, and it's been interesting creating our JewishCommunity.org, is how we have the conversations like this, because this is a very different format.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I'm going to have you watch it and critique it. We're going to talk about it, because we've been doing services online now for 7 years. We started streaming our high holiday services, and for many people, this is their experience. They don't have a chance for a variety of reasons to either they can't get out, they live in small towns, or more importantly, they also see that the words we're saying really resonate with them. But you don't have quite the same experience of, we don't do a big music production, I don't have a guitar, I'm not singing right now. How do you create the emotional context in a format like this? Different struggle.
It is a struggle, and I think that sometimes, the one key to life, is accepting our finitude. And I think that one key to doing a good job as an online rabbi is accepting the limits of what you can do and what you can't do.
Wow.
And so, on some level, I think you can give people language and you can connect them and remind them of certain things. But in the end, if the people that watch this service are going to be fully actualized Jews or fully actualized human beings or fully actualized, they're going to have to get up and find a way to connect with people in person, because there's a way that there's some things that we just can't do unless I can touch you,
Right.
unless I can look at you. And it doesn't mean that this isn't important or valuable. It just means that this isn't everything.
Right. No, and I think that's right, and I think I agree, because my hope is that,
And they may do this. They may do the Jewish thing here,
Right.
Because they can, and they may do the connecting thing when they're in their bowling league.
Right. But they do connect, and I just wanted you to know, because I think it's important, is people chat. And that's been a fascinating, I mean, you know, and we
beautiful.
talk about this, that people are chatting online as we're doing this as well. And I think, and some people have formed friendships. And I think part of it, too, is the friendships are driven through, because people feel comfortable that this is a place that
It's a safe space.
Safe space, intellectually safe, emotionally safe. And I think this is the other part of community that's going to be very interesting, how the experience of onlineness changes community. Because we're both bricks and mortar.
But I have a podcast too
Would you like to
called
promote it?
Humanize Me.
Talk to them.
It's a lovely podcast. You should watch it. Even if you hate it, you should watch it so that you can give it to somebody who you think would like it. But we have these great conversations about what it means to pursue goodness in a secular way.
Right.
And then people write letters in, and you do connect them with each other. And what I'm finding is that safe space is really important, a place where we can talk.
Right.
But I'm always hoping that it's a vehicle that sort of you come in and you get something, and then you go back into your marriage or into your friendships or into your workplace, and you're better able to connect, because I don't think there is a replacement for the human relationship.
I get it.
And so everything we do online is about
Making it alive.
is about equipping people
Absolutely.
to have better relationships and to pursue loving kindness and to be more just and and experience
Absolutely.
wonder.
Right.
Like, so we could talk about the amazing thing of the cosmos here, and if we do a good job of it, people will turn off their computers, run outside, and look at the
up.
stars.
That's a great thing. We're going to end with that.
Yeah.
In a couple minutes, let me make my announcements. Then turn off the computer, and then,
Okay.
and then call somebody, call a friend.
Go for it.
We're going to do a challah reading. That was great. This is fun. I enjoyed it. We've talked almost all weekend, and this was a new conversation.
There you go.
That's the beauty of conversations. Conversations are infinite. They are not, right? As long as you have good people to talk with, we can keep on growing and learning from each other.
Yeah,
And I'm delighted
right
that
on.
we've been able to do this all weekend. Would you like to do the challah?
Sure. I'd be honored. As the fingers of the challah intertwine, so do we join hands in our common humanity, sharing the fruits of our labors. We cherish that which has been created through human effort, for it is through the work of our hands, the strength of the human spirit, the vision of our minds, that our dreams are woven into the tapestry of time. That's beautiful. We celebrate the accomplishments of yesterday and today, anticipating the possibilities of tomorrow. May the sharing of this challah strengthen our bonds with others who walk upon this earth.
Baruch amal kapenu. Blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch hazon ha'adam. Blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch lechem ha'aretz. Blessed is the bread of the earth. And then if you have some juice or wine, join with me. We celebrate the fruit of the vine and bounty of nature as we lift this cup. For we're part of nature, which gave us birth and continues to sustain us. Even as we depend upon nature, so do we influence its course. Through the search for understanding, we've gained the knowledge to shape our world. Guided by the best of human wisdom, the compassion of our spirit, we accept the responsibilities which rest upon us. May the taste of the juice upon our lips stir within us a reverence for nature and a respect for human endeavor. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. We say l'chaim, to life. A couple quick announcements. Given that I don't know exactly when the service is going to be posted, go to our Facebook page. and you can see what's coming up. I post things. If you haven't already, go to CincinnatiOJC.org, and you can see an interview with Bart there, a short, 5-minute, and then share it with people. Because I think what your point about sharing, go to Humanize.
Humanize Me. And if you
How do
can't
we
find Humanize Me, it's on all those platforms. But if they can't find it, go to bartcampolo.org.
Say that again.
bartcampolo.org. Gosh, I feel like, and I'll sell you a carpet too. No, but
Didn't see that.
yeah, right. bartcampolo.org, and there's a lot of stuff there that would be helpful.
Right, and share it. Just like I ask you to share our stuff, our Facebook posts, my podcast, the different materials, our Shabbat services. When you share it, you're helping other people who may be looking for the very same thing that brought you here, but they may not know where to search. Your sharing is a way to enrich their lives. It's about relationships. It's about growing this voice as well, that people know that there's a voice and they go, wow, there's a place. We're minister and a rabbi, right? Walk into a bar. No, that's a different story. But a minister, that people are coming to the worldview we're talking about, grounded in evidence, appreciation for the natural world, recognizing that nothing is going to rescue us. It's dependent on ourselves. So sharing Bart's work, sharing the stuff we're doing here, creating a strong community, supporting these communities become very important so that we touch people's lives who want to be touched, who are looking for a place to give voice to a bold expression of their religious identity. So do those things. Facebook, come to Cincinnati, come to ourjewishcommunity.org or CincinnatiOJC.org. You'll see what's going on. Delighted you're here. You can always write to me at rabbi@ourjewishcommunity.org. And we close with our final words. May we know blessings who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
At ourjewishcommunity.org. We close with our final words. May we know blessings who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.